Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to our consulting salary report drop for 2024. We are so excited to be sharing our latest and greatest data, insights, and trends with you around compensation in the consulting industry for 2024. Again, welcome. We're going to dive in just a couple of minutes. Before we do, I have a very, very special guest to introduce. We're joined by Julian Pritchard from Bates White Economic Consulting. We asked Julian to come on for a couple minutes here and just share more about Bates White, what they do, and why you should be interested potentially in open roles at the firm. So, Julian, please take it away.
No, Naman, thank you for the lovely intro, and I'm really happy to be here. Hi, everyone. As Naman said, my name's Julian Pritchard. I'm a recruiter at Bates White. If you're unfamiliar with Bates White Economic Consulting, we're a firm located in downtown Washington, D.C., founded in 1999. So exciting time for the firm. We're turning 25 this year, so we have a lot of exciting things going on for that. If you're not familiar with us, which I understand, or may not be familiar with economic consulting, just a quick overview. So clients for Bates White are typically law firms, Fortune 500 companies, government agencies, or some sort of entity involved in economic litigation. They hire us for our analysis and expert testimony. So as an example, the DOJ, Department of Justice, might hire us to evaluate a merger between two companies or the effects of that merger. Or there might be another company going through litigation, suing another entity for anti-competitive behavior, and they'll hire us to calculate damages of that behavior, things of that nature. So consultants usually work on processing and analyzing large data sets, creating visuals, developing economic models, and conducting industry research. So the work is very heavy on the quantitative side. So if you enjoy things like coding, analyzing data, I think this is a great spot for you. Another thing that might be different for Bates White and economic consulting in general, as my cat enters the frame here, is our consultants don't travel like many other forms of consulting. So maybe a perk there for you. So a little bit on this campaign coming up. We are growing. So we're actively hiring or about to be actively hiring for experienced consultants and experienced consulting managers to join the firm sometime this spring. So we're hoping to start up this campaign here in the next few weeks. I can share my screen for a little bit more information here, if you'll bear with me. So this is some extra information. Oh, let me share the right screen here.
I saw it for a hot second.
Yep. Can everybody see that?
Yeah, it looks great.
Great. So this is my slide here, a little bit of extra information. So experienced consultants are usually 2 to 4 years, and titles ranging from consultant 2 to senior consultant within that years of experience. And then experienced managers looking for usually 5+ years. That is our website, our careers page. Look out for these postings, like I said, in the next coming weeks, this coming spring. And then feel free to reach out to me. Again, my name is Julian. I'm a recruiter here at Bates White. You can reach out to me for any questions you have, and I'll be happy to chat about this exciting program. Last couple things. We do have a management consultant plug that I wanted to go through here. So we recently published a podcast with Management Consulted. It's a great conversation between the management consulted team and one of our partners. He's actually now the managing partner, Scott Weischer.
Oh, no way. Congrats,
yeah.
Scott. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. I think there's a few other podcasts too. One with Katie Luker for just some more detailed information about what Bates White does and examples of economic consulting and all of its pros. A lot of information there. I hope that wasn't too much. Again, feel free to reach out to me for any questions. And that's really it for me. I appreciate everyone's time.
Julian, one question that came through in the chat was just about locations. Can you just share? I think I know the answer to that, but I want it to come out of your mouth. So where are you hiring for specifically?
Sure. Our only location is downtown Washington, D.C. So we're working on a hybrid model right now. So coming into the office in our DC office would be necessary.
Awesome. Thank you. So
yeah, of course.
Just so everyone knows, this means consulting firms are hiring. So when you see salaries, they're not phantom numbers. And in case you want to know what you'll get paid, Bates White numbers are in our salary report. So we'll share a little bit more about that as we go through. Back over to you, Japheth and Naman.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Jenny Ray. Julian, thanks so much for joining us today. I just want to say, not only does Bates White do really interesting work, but some of the nicest people I've met in the industry. So highly recommend you checking out the open roles at the firm. Japheth, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to ask you to pop up a quick poll. We'd love to get to know who's joining us today, where you're coming from, so that we can speak directly to your questions, your concerns, and what you want to know. So let us know, are you currently a job seeker looking for a consulting role? Are you already a professional, maybe in another industry or maybe in consulting? Do you represent a university on this call? Or do you fall into another category? We have to make this meaty. So take about 10 to 15 seconds and just let us know who you are. And that'll help us tailor our time together today. And Jenny Ray, while folks are responding to the survey, I'd just love for you to share a little bit more about how MC can help serve the folks who are on today's call.
Yeah. Well, our salaries report is always an opportunity for us to share the fact that consulting might be an industry that you're interested in, or if you're in it, that there are areas that we can help with. So Management Consulted is a consulting expert, and we have really 3 lines of business. So depending on where you're coming from, we'd love to help. The first is our firms. We do comp reports, so specific individualized comp reports for a set of peers. That can be incredibly helpful. We have an audience of about 3 million people that share their comp data with us, or that we can go get comp data from. So comp reports are a piece of what we do. We do training. So we run a program called Strategy Sprint, which is a 1-week internal training process. So your team can learn how to better communicate, analyze data, and also present. So if there are any weaknesses in any of those 3 areas, Strategy Sprint can help with that. We also do a program on communications founded on the Pre-Word principle, but drawing in other expert communication tactics. And this has helped large organizations like Facebook and CBS transform the way that they communicate. It's also helped small businesses. We've worked with teams as small as 10 for that. In addition, we have a media arm. So if you want to come on our podcast, we would love to have you. If you want to share your story with email, if you have jobs that you're trying to fill, if you want to help build your brand, then all of those are great options. For universities, for digital support, we offer a large digital package where universities, for one flat rate, can support all of their students. We do live trainings for cases, and we also have an outsourced case prep team. So if your team does not want to do case prep with students, we would love to help with that. And finally, for job seekers, a lot of what most people know us for, this is what a lot of our website is focused on, are the 3 offerings for job seekers that are most popular. Strategy Sprint, which is our 1-week consulting experience. You can join just 1 person at a time for that, the same as we do with the firms, but we bring the project instead. For Black Belt, a resume edit plus coaching, and finally our community, which will open February 1st. And we'll share a little bit more about the community later. Naman, back to you for the poll.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Jenny Ray. Japheth, do you want to pop up the results of the poll so we can see who's on the call and where we're all coming from?
Yeah. So looks like we've got a majority of professionals on the call. It's about that's about half. And then about 20 and 20% are job seekers in universities. Then we got about 10% in that other category.
Okay, fantastic. Once we get to the Q&A portion of today, we'll have to figure out who the other folks are on today's call, but that's helpful to know that the majority of us are working professionals. Let's dive right into why y'all are actually here. And if you're interested in learning more about any of the support options on this slide, my colleagues Japheth and Eden and Caleb will pop some links in the chat. You can follow up with them. But I want to start to talk about consulting salaries now. And so here's the high level, the key takeaway. Consulting starting salaries in 2024 froze. So if across the industry, over 90% of firms kept starting salaries flat compared to 2023. However, as we'll walk through today, the industry is in a stronger position than a lot of you might think. And what we're going to do today is we're going to give you an industry overview. We're going to talk about some of the trends that we're seeing take place in the comp landscape here coming up over the next 12 to 18 months. And we're going to break down some numbers between MBB, between Big Four, and between some boutique firms, so you can see exactly what starting salaries are like in each of these tiers of firms, as well as the max total compensation that you could earn. Now, before we dive in, I want to just align us on definitions. So when I talk about starting salaries, what I'm really saying are starting entry-level salaries at the pre and post MBA levels. So for those of you who are experienced hires, you will have the opportunity to negotiate at many firms once you are given an offer. So the numbers that you're going to see in our report are for pre and post MBA entry levels, and you can use those numbers to then triangulate what your worth is in the market. The second thing I just want to really make clear is that 2024 salaries refer to offers that have 2024 start dates, which means that a lot of these offers were handed out in 2023. So if you receive an offer this year, but your start date is in 2025, you have what I would consider a 2025 consulting salary. So the numbers that we're going to walk through today are for those folks who are starting work in 2024. And a lot of those offers were handed out anywhere from 6 months ago to a few days ago. And so now that we're just aligned on those definitions, we can dive into some of the trends that we're seeing. First thing I want to point out is that even though at the MBB level, starting salaries froze, MBB still leads the industry both in prestige and pay. And we'll dive into some of the other types of compensation that you'll see at MBB and why you might or might not want to go there if comp is important to you. One of the things that some of y'all might be surprised by is that especially at the strategy practice level inside the Big Four, those total salaries and comp packages are comparable to MBB, even at the Big Four level. And we'll dive into what some of the details are inside of those comp packages in just a minute. And then the last trend that we'll talk about today is that the compensation gap between boutique firms, and I define a boutique as any firm that's not MBB or Big Four. So the comp gap between boutiques and the big firms is actually narrowing, albeit just slowly and a little bit. But there are some boutiques in the market that actually offer more total compensation than what you could get at MBB or the Big Four. And we'll highlight some of those towards the end of our call today. So Jenny Rae, I'll let you speak to that if you want before I dive into some of these trends.
I just have one thing to add. The offers are down. And what that's kind of the macro picture around everything. Naman's going to talk about how the industry in a whole is in a better place. Offers are down, but every firm across the board is still hiring. And so one of the things that we're facing, and a lot of the questions that we have both from the firm side and from the job seeker side, is just, are any firms hiring? The answer is actually every firm is hiring. And so that's something you're not going to see in this data, but that's part of the macro picture that's surrounding it. And in addition to that, the firms that are hiring are really thinking even more strategically about who they bring in. So the processes are a little bit longer and more rigorous. Many people are networking for a longer and more arduous period. Networking is becoming more and more important. It really, in the past 2 years, there's just been a significant flip into an advantage from a seller's market to a buyer's market. And so we're looking to see the differences there. And I just wanted to paint that macro picture on top of everything that Naman shared.
I've been in the space for almost 10 years, and this is the most competitive hiring landscape I've ever seen. So you got to get your ducks in a row if you're going to recruit for consulting this year. So why did consulting salaries freeze? I want to look back for just a second, and then we'll look forward. And as an aside, we called this a year ago in last year's salary report. So if you are interested in figuring out what's going to happen in 2025, go download the salary report. It's 100% free. We've got pages and pages of insight in there on what we expect to happen in the next 12 months. And we were proven right last year. And so you can hold our feet to the fire 12 months from now to see if we were right again. But if you had read the report last year, you would have seen what was coming. There was loosening demand for consulting services across the board this last year due to large companies reducing OpEx. That led to layoffs, which led to hiring freezes, which led to delayed start dates. Add it all up, and as Jenny Rae said, we moved from a market where candidates had leverage to a market where firms had leverage. And so you saw that in the salary changes, or the lack thereof, playing out in 2024. Now, a lot of folks look at layoffs, they look at hiring freezes, they look at delayed start dates, and they say, look, is consulting even a healthy industry? What's going on underneath the surface? And if you ask us, what's happening here is that the industry is coming down from a sugar high, but things are not as out of whack as they may seem if you're just looking at the last slide. So if you look at what happened over the last 4 to 5 years, we saw double-digit percentage in compound annual growth rate inside of the consulting industry. We saw firms across the board hiring their largest incoming analyst cohorts ever. We saw 15 to 20% year-to-year salary increases from 2019 to 2023. Add it all up, this was unsustainable growth, right? It was a sugar high. So as you look to 2024, you see, okay, industry growth is normalizing. Is growth slower than it has been over the last 4 years? Absolutely. But it's more in line with historical averages than what we've experienced over the last 5 years. And if you haven't been following the industry for more than the last couple of years, you wouldn't necessarily know that. If you look at the overall market, it's still significantly larger than it was 2019, which of course, as we all know, was our last kind of normal pre-pandemic year. The same is true with hiring growth. If you just look at the industry through this lens of the last 12 to 24 months, you're like, oh my gosh, things are falling off a cliff. But 2021, 2022, some of the most frothy hiring environments I've ever seen. If you look at hiring and headcounts now compared to 2019, headcounts are still higher. The same is true with salary growth. If you just look at 2024 in a vacuum, you say, oh my gosh, starting salaries are freezing, the world is falling apart. But if you look at the bigger picture, you see, okay, starting salaries are 15, 20, 25% higher than they were in 2019, and they're not going back down to pre-pandemic levels. Add it all up, and it's still a fantastic time to break into the industry if you can make it through the gauntlet that is consulting recruiting. You have higher starting salaries. You actually have better lifestyle. You heard Julian from Bates White say at the top of this call, they don't really require their consultants to travel. That is becoming the new normal at a lot of consulting firms. You no longer have to be, 5 days, 4 nights on the road at many firms like you had to be 5 years ago. So you've got higher comp than you did 5 years ago. You've got better lifestyle than you did 5 years ago. And you also right now have lower utilization. That is a recipe for better work-life balance, better fulfillment, if you can make it through, again, the just gauntlet that is consulting recruiting. So zoom out a little bit, take the 30,000-foot view, and you'll see that the consulting industry overall is still strong. So what do we expect to happen in 2025? We expect consulting salaries to rise, albeit marginally. Here's why. As you look around the globe, you see that macroeconomic activity is ticking up and is projected to tick up. And so this leads to 3 second-order effects. You've got a demand for consulting services that will increase. We're already seeing that in Q1 of this year. You're seeing a labor market that's going to tighten a little bit after slackening last year. And you're seeing hiring already increasing in banking and in tech. Why is that important? So when consulting firms aren't competing for talent amongst themselves, they're competing for talent primarily with Wall Street and with Silicon Valley. So as you see hiring pick back up in IB, in tech, you're going to see that competition for talent get a little bit fiercer. And so what is consulting going to have to do to lure people away from banking, away from tech, as those industries begin to hire again? They're going to have to increase comp a little bit moving into the 2025 cycle. January, anything you want to add to either what we're seeing today or what we expect to see in the future?
No, just that if you've never been in this kind of environment, it can feel like the delayed start dates, the long periods where people are hiring and it takes 3 months for them to get back to you or completed interview process are a sign of doomsday, that the consulting industry is on poor financial footing and that their outlook is weak. And I would actually just argue that a doomsday sign is layoffs, and we aren't seeing that across the board. So while we are seeing that in these other industries, in banking and in tech, the consulting firms are doing, I think, a really masterful job of managing headcount and overhead to demand. And so all that means is, again, is that the market is tightening for opportunities, but you're not going to be in a situation where you invest, where you get in and then you're laid off. And that the fact that they're managing against that is also something that we haven't seen them super successfully do. And I'm really encouraged by that macroeconomic trend.
One of the things I talk about in the report is how consulting firms did a fantastic job of protecting margins last year. Their balance sheets are stronger than they've ever been. And so if you're interested in more details around how that is and why that is, we break it all down in the report. But to Jenny Ray's point, it means if you can get in, there's stability and job security there as long as you're not a bottom 5% performer. So how do you compare the US versus non-US markets? You'll see inside of our report that we break down comp for geographies around the world. And a lot of the headline here, which is starting salaries froze, is applicable for geographies globally. But where we did see salaries rise more often was actually in the UK and Europe compared to the US. So historically, if you look over the last 5 to 10 years, salary growth in the US has far outpaced international markets. In 2023, which is the 2024 cycle, is when we saw the UK and Europe especially narrow the gap a little bit between comp in that region and comp in the US. Now, what firms typically try to do is they typically aim to keep purchasing power consistent for their consultants across geographies. In reality, this doesn't really happen. And so even though you're seeing salary growth accelerating in the UK and Europe compared to the US, you will still find that US consultants have by far the strongest and the best purchasing power compared to their peers around the world. So what do I expect to happen in 2025? I expect salaries to continue to grow in the UK, in Europe, around the world faster than they're going to grow in the US. But I still expect there to be a large disparity in purchasing power between US consultants and consultants in other regions of the world. One other thing I just want to add here to Jenny Ray's point around the fact that consulting firms are hiring and the state of the industry is strong is that I've been talking to a lot of MBA candidates over the last few days and weeks, and I've been receiving indications from many of them that their start dates are going to be in early summer and that the days of start dates being delayed are over, especially at what we would consider the top 20 firms. So that to me is a sign that services demand is already picking up if firms are making plans to have new hires join them early this summer instead of continuing to push start dates back like we saw last year. What I'd like to do now is just take a 1-minute break, let everybody digest what we just talked about, and just talk to you for a minute around how Management Consulted serves some of our consulting firm partners. And then what we'll do is we'll do a deep dive into some of the numbers at the MBB, the Big Four, and the boutique levels. So for those of you on the call who represent consulting firms, there are really 3 ways that we partner with firms to help them achieve their strategic goals. Number 1, Jenny Ray mentioned this at the top of the call, we do custom compensation studies. So if you're interested in benching your comp at multiple levels to a set of peer firms, we can help. And you can get in touch with Japheth to learn more about how we can put a custom report together for you. Japheth, I'll ask you to just put your information in the chat. The second way that we serve firms is that we help them build their brand awareness and we help them identify top talent from our community. And so there are amazing people on this call today looking for consulting roles. And so if you want to get in front of these amazing candidates who are investing in their prep, you can work with us to sponsor live events like this. You can work with us to come on our podcast and share about your job opportunities. You can come hold hiring events inside of our community. There's a lot of different ways that you can get in front of this amazing talent that's a part of the Management Consulted community. We'd love to help you do that. And the last way that Management Consulted can serve you is by helping you upskilling your existing talent. So again, Jenny Ray mentioned this at the top of our call, but we conduct about 200 training sessions a year for teams inside of the Fortune 500 and consulting firms around strategic analysis, strategic communication, and more. So if you feel like your onboarding program could use a little bit of a plug up, if you will, a power up, if you feel like your ongoing training is lacking something in terms of those key consulting skills, we'd love to help. And you can get in touch with Japheth and Eden in the chat, and we're happy to have a conversation with you about that. Jenny Ray, any other announcements you wanted to make at this point before we dive into some specific numbers?
Well, just because this often is an opportunity for us to meet with firms that have never been there before, both today's salary report is made available completely free to our entire audience. It is probably the best way for you to get your opportunities in front of people. And we would love to update the salary report for the following 2 weeks. We provide updates as people give us offer letters that are new and also firms that we haven't considered to be included. So if you want to have your salary information included and you represent one of those firms, please just reach out to us. It's totally free. And just one other free offering that we have that gets some of the most traffic on our website is a consulting firms database. There are a lot of people that are looking for consulting opportunities, but the top 20 firms either don't make sense for them or they're not specifically leveraging some of their expertise and background. And so if you're looking for talent or for business development for matching your skills with opportunities in the marketplace, our database, also completely free, is available to you. So Japheth put his email in the chat. And so we just want to make sure that everyone knows how much of this we do. It's kind of our one big opportunity this year to share. And we'd love to hear from you and share about what we can do, how we can help, and building a partnership together over time will really help expand your business.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Jenny Ray. So let's dive into some of the specific numbers. And I'm not going to read these numbers off to you verbatim. They're on the slide, but a couple of high-level takeaways at the MBB level in terms of comp. So MBB froze starting salaries. That's the headline. You've already heard that. But one thing you may not have heard, and you'll see this in the report, is that we also saw reduced max performance bonuses at the MBB level. And so what MBB is doing is not just holding its fixed costs flat, but it's also trying to reduce some of the variable costs that comes along with the performance bonuses that they pay out every year. Couple of reasons for that, in my view. Number one, demand was down last year. Number two, they're actually trying to increase attrition, or they were last year, because utilization was low and layoffs are just bad PR. So one way to increase attrition is reduce raises and reduce maximum variable compensation that folks can earn. So for folks with 2024 start dates, you actually have a lower ceiling in terms of total compensation that you can earn at MBB compared to folks who had 2023 start dates. Now, if you're blessed and privileged enough to be comparing Bain, BCG, and McKinsey, and you've got offers from all three, and comp is your number one determining factor in terms of the decision that you make, Bain's going to lead the way in terms of max total compensation. And so you can see on this slide at both the entry-level undergraduate and specialty master's level and at the entry-level MBA and advanced professional degree level, max total comp is comparable across all of these firms, but Bain is just a little bit ahead of both BCG and McKinsey. And to me, part of the reason why is because they're the smallest out of the MBB. And so there's a little bit less in terms perhaps of kind of structural support or global network that Bain can offer you compared to the other two, but they make up for it in terms of higher max total comp. Here's what makes up maximum total compensation for those of you who are asking amongst yourselves, okay, what does that include? So max total compensation includes your base salary for your first year, your signing bonus, and the maximum performance bonus that you could earn in your first year at the firm. So that's the calculation for the max compensation number. Keep in mind that only around the top 10% of performers at MBB actually achieve the max performance bonus that they can. Most people end up getting around half of what the maximum performance bonus is. So you will see inside the report what the max performance bonus is. If you are wanting to play it safe in terms of projecting your comp, cut that performance bonus in half. And that's how much you can realistically expect to earn if you're an average performer inside of MBB. Interesting note about these salaries is last year, BCG was first to raise their compensation when the hiring market was still frothy. And so they raised their undergraduate entry-level base to $110,000 US, the post-graduate level base to $190,000. McKinsey and Bain followed suit after BCG, which is why they one-upped the firm by raising their base salaries by $2,000 above where BCG had gone. So the reason that BCG's base numbers are a little bit lower than McKinsey and Bain's is because they were the first movers in terms of getting to this level of compensation to begin with. I'll pause here for a second. Jenny Ray, I'll let you speak to anything you want to off this slide, including maybe some of your own experience from Bain in terms of performance bonuses.
Yeah, look, the max comp is always something that people shoot for. In reality, most firms give 10 to maybe 15% of their performers that max comp. There's some haircut on that, usually 5 or 8% to what is the bulk of performers. And then there are some people who are on performance review that'll have a little bit less than that as well. But generally, everybody does get a performance bonus. It varies, but that's usually how the bell curve works for those. So if you kind of go in saying, I'm going to make 285, just recognize you got to be one of the top 10%. And I know Caleb is going to talk a little bit about our community in a few minutes, but we are building the world's first community for consultants and consultants to be in order to help you get there. The other thing is just to reinforce what Naman said. Yeah, like Bain's hire, honestly, nobody goes to any one of these firms and says, if I pick between 2 or 3 of them, it's because of comp. So the firms really work to maintain parity with one another. But at the end of the day, Bain's message is a signaling message. It's not really a material decision point for a lot of folks. Our advice 110% of the time is go where the culture fits and where you feel like you have the most longevity in your career. Most people, when they start at one of these firms, don't move between them.
And really the only way you figure out if you're a good cultural fit is through networking and talking to folks inside of these firms and inside of the offices that you're targeting. So just another reason for you to network, not just to get your foot in the door, but to be able to compare offers on the other side of the recruiting process as well. A couple things I just want to call out before we move on to the Big Four. MBB treat undergraduate and specialty master students the same. So if you're on this call and you're in a specialty master's program, you are going to be treated the same as an undergraduate student. Like the level that you enter in at is exactly the same. And the same is true at the PhD, JD, MD level. You are treated the same as an MBA candidate. So your entry level at MBB is the same. Your starting comp is the same as an MBA. Let's talk about the Big Four now. And the numbers that you see on this slide are specifically for the strategy practices inside the Big Four. Most of you on this call probably know the Big Four are behemoths and are 10, 20, 30 times larger than MBB and have practice areas that run the gamut from digital to public sector to supply chain to cloud to strategy and a million others. And so you'll see the breakdown of comp by practice area inside the report. What we wanted to do on today's call is really hone in on the salaries inside of the strategy practices and give the Big Four some credit for keeping pace with MBB in terms of comp inside of these practices. And you'll see that at the MBA level, the postgraduate level, your total maximum compensation at places like EY Parthenon or PwC Strategy and is actually higher. Your earning potential is higher at those firms than it is even at MBB. And so if you find that you're a better cultural fit inside of one of these firms, or if you were only targeting MBB before this call, but this slide makes you change your mind a little bit, you want to expand your scope, then I highly recommend that you do that because these firms do incredible work. They give you the backing of a large organization, still give you a fantastic network and the comp to boot as well. The one outlier here is KPMG in terms of its comp at inside the strategy practice. One of the things that Deloitte, EY, and PwC have done is really invest heavily in building up their strategy practices, mostly through inorganic means, acquisition. KPMG is the outlier here. They haven't done that. And so they've fallen a little bit behind in terms of brand and prestige in terms of Big Four strategy. And so you see that reflected in their compensation here as well. Where else are we seeing salary increases? We are seeing some salary increases in the public sector practices inside of the Big Four and inside the digital practices as well. So if you're not necessarily interested in strategy, but want to go somewhere else, we're seeing some gains in the public sector practices and in digital. The astute among you here might have noticed that at the undergraduate level, Deloitte is lagging behind in max compensation, behind EY and behind Strategy and. The reason why, and again, you'll see this inside the report, is that at Deloitte, you don't get a performance bonus till after your third year. So that's why the max compensation at Deloitte in terms of the undergraduate compensation is a little bit lower than at EY and Strategy and. Maybe that's a determining factor for you in terms of how you rank your firms. Maybe it's not, but something to keep in mind.
I think it's important to note here that these differences, unlike MBB, really do reflect the differences in the types of work that these firms do. And so whereas for MBB, just swap out the name of a Fortune 100 company for a different one, and largely the fee structure is the same, the experience is the same, the team structure is the same. Deloitte's internal strategy practice, EY Parthenon's and Strategy N's, they work in very different balances of industries. They work on very different endurance level projects. Some of them are much shorter sprints. EY Parthenon is a shorter sprint, usually, like Strategy and is. Deloitte is often a longer process. And those are reflected in both the comp rates at this level and also all the way up through. And we don't make value judgments, by the way, on those things, because some people want shorter sprints and a more intense work environment and the rotational learning that comes from that. And some people want lifestyle benefits of having longer projects and more security over the long haul. It also we really do highlight in here, but I just want to make a specific call out that the max comp does include the cash comp. But one thing that really isn't reflected in here are benefits packages. And I would just say that across the board, the Big Four have superior benefits packages even to MBB when it comes to things like paternity, maternity, infertility, lifestyle changes. So you want to take 6 months off, relocation, rotational programs through different offices. A lot of those elements of the work are not really reflected here in the salaries. And so when people are choosing between firms, but also between levels or types of organizations, understanding that big picture can be super helpful.
100%. Another big one at the Big Four is tuition reimbursement. And so especially if you're coming out of an expensive MBA program, that can be really, really attractive. Here's where I think things get really, really interesting. So I'm going to highlight on the next slide 4 boutique firms that have what I think are interesting compensation structures. Understand there are over 100 firms represented in our report. And so I had to pick 4. And so we're going to give you some trends playing out at that level of the market through the lens of these 4 firms. But you will find data on over 100 firms inside the report, and to Jenny Ray's point, data on benefits as well. So the benefits that she mentioned, plus others like retirement contributions, paid time off, tuition reimbursement, etc. You'll find those inside the full report. But high-level takeaway here is that the comp gap between boutiques and top firms is narrowing, which is good news, I think, for the industry at large and for candidates who want to expand the scope of their job search. And there are some boutiques that actually offer more total comp than MBB and then Big Four. And so the 4 that we're going to highlight today are Alvarez and Marsal, Accenture Strategy, Kearney, and Oliver Wyman. And you can see here some of the numbers at both the undergraduate and the MBA levels for these firms. They are incredibly competitive and or even higher than what we've seen from what you might consider larger or more established firms. Especially firms like Alvarez and Marsal, who do bankruptcy and turnaround work. One of the things that you'll find at firms like that is you have a very high variable compensation and often an uncapped bonus structure. And so you'll find kind of high levels of reward built into the compensation structures at firms like A&M and their peer firms as well. Accenture Strategy offers incredibly competitive base salaries and fantastic benefits. And so a wonderful place to go if you're interested in technology strategy and you're not really sacrificing a whole lot in terms of cash comp. If you go to Accenture Strategy compared to some of the other firms we've talked about. Kearney, especially at the postgraduate level. So if you're an MBA or other advanced professional degree candidate, leads the way in terms of both base salary and total compensation for advanced degree candidates. And so if you're interested, again, in other firms that you may not have heard of and comp is important to you, I'd recommend checking out Kearney for that reason. And Oliver Wyman, same thing. Base salary that's equivalent to both BCG and some of the other top Big Four firms that we've talked about, and max total compensation that comes in at the higher end of the market. So if you want to specialize, if you want a firm that's got a smaller environment than some of the other firms we've talked about, you don't necessarily have to sacrifice comp to now go and be in that kind of environment like you might have had to do 10 or 15 years ago. One last thing that I'll just mention here is that you also have a lot of internal strategy groups at the Fortune 500 who are also now offering comp on par with external consulting firms. So you'll see in the report internal strategy groups like Capital One Strategy that are represented in a report. And if you want to go do consulting-like work inside the Fortune 500, but just serve one client and go to a place like Capital One and work on the business instead of in the business, that is a viable alternative for you now. And you'll find internal strategy practices inside the Fortune 500 offer typically better lifestyle, better work-life balance, and increasingly comp that's comparable to what you'll find in traditional management consulting. And so you will see some of those types of practice areas and firms represented in our report as well. And they're a fantastic alternative to traditional consulting. Before I quickly move into hiring cycles for this year, Jenny Ray, anything you want to add to this slide?
I just want to say, honestly, it has been the delight of our past couple of years finding out how many great firms there are that pay at the same levels that MBB do and that offer, like Iman mentioned, these really exceptional offerings. And I know we're going to talk in just a second about the community that we're offering, but just if you represent a firm or if you're on the job seeker side and you want to know more about these firms, this is a big future growth area for us that we're really investing in, is getting to know the firms, sharing about their culture, helping to translate how amazing they are to our audience and our community. And so whether you're on the firm side or the job seeker side, I think we're working to create better connections for you between them. So if you have questions about that, either in the Q&A later or just directly with us, hey, what are some of the firms that I might not have thought about that could be a great either entree into consulting or a place to live forever? We have a member of our team who was at McKinsey who left, went to build a business, and recently went back to A&M and is super duper happy there. And so a lot of people don't think about the movement going both directions, but actually it is and does. And there's a lot of really good reasons for that. And we expect to see more of that kind of boutiquing of the market, I would call it, in the future. So in the same way that you used to get all of your clothes at 4 major department stores in your city, and now you go direct to these really specialty providers that offer something special for just you in a custom way. We're seeing that in the firm space, and we'll work to bring you more of that. But anyhow, just please reach out to us if you have questions on either side of that equation.
Absolutely. Now, half of you on this call told us you were professionals, and so you're probably interested in your hiring cycles. Okay, I'm in on consulting. I've got my list of target firms. When should I recruit? And so here's when you should recruit, depending on which category you fall into. And so if you're an advanced professional degree candidate, that is a PhD, a JD, an MD, or on that level, your recruiting starts next month. So a lot of firms run what they call spring bridge programs, specifically for non-MBA advanced degree candidates who are looking to break into consulting. And so that is your most streamlined path to get into the top firms, those spring programs. We have a list of those spring programs on our website along with their application deadlines. If you are a PhD, a postdoc, a JD, an MD, and you want to go into consulting, those programs are your best bet to do that. These are 1 day to 1 week introductions to consulting at the top firms. They're competitive programs to get into. You typically work on a project during that week that you're at the firm, and you are often guaranteed a first round interview invite for a full-time role that will happen later in summer 2024. And so you want to get in on this action now if you fall into that category. If you're on this call and you're an undergraduate or a specialty master's student, your recruiting cycle really starts in April of this year. That's when we expect to see first application deadlines hit for roles that are going to begin in summer of 2025. And I'm just going to let that sink in for a second. Like, your recruiting is going to happen 12 to 14 months ahead of when you can expect to start. And so if you think you have a lot of time, you may be deceived. Like, when it comes to consulting recruiting, you have to think ahead. And so for those of you who are rising juniors, rising seniors, you're planning to join a one-year specialty master's cohort beginning this summer, you have to start recruiting here this spring and this summer to position yourself to get an offer for summer of 2025. And so what should you be doing right now? You should be getting your resume ready. You should be building a networking plan. You should just be at the very foundational level, starting to prepare yourself for the case interview, understanding that this summer is when you're going to interview for roles that begin next summer. How about for you MBAs that are on the call? There may be some of you who already know you're going to business school starting fall of 2024. So if you know that you are starting an MBA program this fall, what you want to do is you want to get into what the firms call their pre-MBA programs. So these are summer programs for folks who have not matriculated yet at top MBA programs. And it's a way for the firms to get to you before other firms and other industries can get to you. And so they're specialized summer programs to give you an inside look at the firm's work, at their culture. You get to build fantastic connections and a network that will help you when recruiting season comes around for first-year MBAs. So you want to be targeting these summer programs in April and May. They will begin in June. And again, a great way for you to get a head start on your peers in terms of building relationships and figuring out where you fit inside of the consulting landscape. If you're already an MBA candidate, maybe you're a first year right now and you're returning for the second year of a full-time program, your recruiting will take place in August of this year. So you can expect application deadlines to hit in June and July, and you'll interview in August. And so if you have another summer internship lined up for this year, you want to start your prep early. You want to start your prep in the spring. You don't necessarily want to be going full bore in your summer internship and then full bore with re-recruiting at the same time. So be a little bit strategic, get a head start on your re-recruiting now. And then the rest of us fall into the lateral hire category. We're currently working and we're looking to make a lateral move into consulting. We have rolling application deadlines. But with that being said, even though we can apply and interview at any time, there are certain times of the year where firms are more actively hiring. And you heard it from Bates White at the top of today's call. They are looking to onboard lateral hires this spring. And that is generally true for firms across the landscape. We see a burst of lateral hire recruiting happen between the months of March and May. We call it second season here at Management Consultant. So you want to get in on that this spring if you can. Why do firms hire in the spring? A couple of reasons. First, performance bonuses for 2023 are going to go out most likely in February of 2024. And once, as a consultant, I get my performance bonus for the last year, that's when I put in my notice that I'm leaving. So there's like an increase in attrition that happens in Q1 of a new year. And there's also a reevaluation of my pipeline as a consulting firm. I take a look at the projects I have in my pipeline for the rest of the year in Q1. And our hypothesis and what we're already seeing play out in the market is that demand is rebounding this year for consulting services, and firms are a little bit understaffed compared to the demand that's in their pipelines. And so they need help imminently, and recruiting students doesn't help me for the help I need now, right? I'm recruiting students now for start dates in 2025. But if I need to plug staffing gaps in 2024, the way I do that is by recruiting lateral hires. And so springtime is when a lot of that hiring happens. Just beware, because firms are conducting that burst of lateral hiring to fill immediate staffing needs, that the recruiting process moves really, really quickly. So you should be, before you apply, around 80% ready to interview already. Because if I've got a practice area that needs help now, I'm going to move you through the process quickly. If I've got an office that's understaffed, I'm going to move you through the process quickly. And one of the things that we do with our clients is we help our clients identify which offices are hiring and which practice areas are hiring. And that's where, as a lateral hire, you should focus your efforts, because you're hired to plug more immediate staffing needs. So this year, for example, in the US, we're seeing offices in the Southeast hire more than offices in the West region of the United States and more than the Northeast. So if you're interested in living in cities like Nashville, like Raleigh, like Charlotte, like Miami, like Dallas, like Austin, then those are the offices inside of the US that are more likely to hire in the spring than your New Yorks, your Chicagos, your San Franciscos. And we can help you break it down more by firm through email, through a call, when we're working with you on your recruiting strategy. The best way to work with us, if you're interested in that, is through Black Belt. And so I'm not going to belabor this slide a whole lot. I'm just going to say this. Black Belt is our flagship recruiting support program. 80% of Black Belts go through the program and land at least one offer. So if you want structured coaching, if you want resume and cover letter edits, if you want to join our community, Black Belt's the way to do it. And you know now your timeline and when you should be recruiting and when you can expect to interview. Black Belt's the best way for you to prepare for networking, to prepare for applications, to prepare for the interviews you're going to see. And we'll even help you be strategic, again, with the practice areas, the offices, the regions that you target. If you're interested in learning more about how we can help, Eden, my colleague, is here on the call. She's happy to pop her information in the chat. Schedule a call with her. No commitment. No sleazy sales tactics. We'll just walk you through the program. We'll tell you if it's a good fit for you or not, and then you can make a decision from there. So that's Black Belt. Highly, highly recommend it. A big part of Black Belt is going to be our new management consultant community. And so I want to invite Caleb now to just unmute and share a little bit more about what the community is going to be and why you all might want to join. So Caleb, please take it away.
Thanks so much, Naman. Thanks
Caleb,
for being here.
before you dive in, just one thing quickly. If y'all have questions, pop them in the chat. I've been answering them as we've gone, and then we'll take a few questions right after Caleb finishes. Thanks, Caleb. Go for it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Naman. Thanks, Jenny. Yes, hi, everyone. I'm Caleb. I am the community manager, and I'm so excited to announce that next week on February 1st, we're launching the first ever go-to community for aspiring consultants. This place is guaranteed to transform your network and your career. And there's really three ways we're doing that. We're going to connect you with your peers. We're going to connect you with other industry experts, other seasoned consultants will be coming in and sharing with us, and also firms. We're actually inviting in different top consulting firms to come, bringing their recruiters or top leaders to have Q&A sessions, info sessions about their culture, job opportunities, how you can join those specific companies. So it's an incredible space for trainings and support you're not going to get anywhere else, and to really build your network, which is a huge part of this journey to successfully advance your consulting career. So as we mentioned, we have limited spaces for this. We have 30 open spots, and they're going fast. So starting for the February cohort of folks in the community, right now, first priority for those goes to anyone who purchases Black Belt or Super Prep. So if you want to lock in one of those 30 spots, then purchase Black Belt. The community is normally $850 a year, so it's an incredible value because you get one free year in the community when you buy Black Belt between now and this Friday, the 26th. After the 26th, after this Friday, we're going to open up the community for standalone purchases if there's still room. So I think Japheth's going to put probably 2 links in the chat. One's going to be the link to purchasing Black Belt. The second will be the link to joining the waitlist. So if you want to join the waitlist, please do, and we'll open up if there's room, and then you can know when we're going to open up in the future as well, in future months. So I hope to see you in there, and thank you for the opportunity to share today.
Appreciate you, Caleb. Thanks so much. If you all have questions about the community, email us, ask us here on the call today, or schedule a call with a member of our team, and we're happy to talk to you more about what's included and why it might be a good fit for you or not. Amazing. January, I know that you've been managing the chat, and I have not had visibility into that. So if there are great questions coming in that you want either you or I to address publicly, I think that this would be a good time to do that, but I'll let you kind of lead the Q&A portion of our call.
That sounds great. So if anybody has a question that you want to ask live, we'd love to answer them now. And these questions can be about comp, our comp reports, what's included, what they cover, et cetera. One question that did come in was about international students. And so I just wanted to mention that if you are supporting international students or if international students are hiring, the majority of the most robust portion of our comp is, of course, from the US. It's the largest consulting market by 10 miles, not even a mile, but 10 miles in the world. But we do have, where we have received it, comp studies for outside of the US. And so if you're in Canada or Europe or South Africa, different Asian markets, et cetera, then we do have that, and it's included in the report where it's been provided to us. It's also something that we can go get if it's something of specific interest to you. Generally, you can see some of those international trends. We also have on our website it's the best proxy that we have for the firms that hire international students. So it's firms that have hired within the last year and used a sponsorship process. We have a database of those firms. So if you're interested in knowing who those are, if a firm is not on there, it's a near guarantee that they do not hire. If a firm is on there, it's a good possibility that they do hire and sponsor. And so for those that are international students. And then the final series of questions that I got in actually had a lot more to do with where you apply. Naman, do you mind just going back to the MBA and the MBB, sorry, the MBB levels for both undergrad and MBA, because I just can layer onto this. So if we just look at an example of this chart, our general guidance for this is that somebody who is in their undergrad for sure, and somebody in a specialty master's program, whether they have 0 years of work experience up to around 5 years of work experience, will be at the undergrad and MS level. That also includes anybody who's an experienced hire. Like me, I traveled around the world and started a business. I went in at the undergraduate level. Sometimes they'll give you a 6-month bump, which is really just an opportunity to get promoted 6 months early, but the comp wasn't higher. I didn't get a lot of extra credit for the work that I did outside of the industry. The second piece, the MBA piece, we usually say is around 5 to 8 years of work experience, and or obviously in an MBA or a PhD or another commensurate program like that. And so one of the things that Eden does a really good job of is take your resume and translate it into this market and tell you where to hire, who to network with, what kinds of divisions might be really good fits for you. And so just to reiterate something that Naman said earlier, Eden is the right place on our team to go to do that review. So a lot of questions came in of like, where do I actually fit? How much would I make, et cetera? Just to let you know, you are normal in asking those questions, and we would love to help you answer those specifically.
Can I just add one thing onto that, January, that I think is really interesting? So MBB, like in a particular region, well, the comp is the same no matter which office you're targeting. So for example, at MBB, you get paid the same whether you're in San Francisco or in Dallas. So one of the things we help our clients think through is not just, where would I be a good fit, but like, where would my salary go the furthest? And if I'm being paid the same in Dallas versus San Francisco, should I think about maybe lower cost of living offices or regions to target? And so that's something that's pretty unique to MBB. Like your comp is your comp at the entry level, no matter which office in a particular geography you're targeting. You'll see some more variance at the Big Four and the boutique levels. You'll see some cost of living adjustments for certain firms. You will see some firms that pay higher in higher cost of living markets like New York and San Francisco, as opposed to places like Dallas or Austin. And so just another thing for you to be thinking about as you're putting your target list together and networking, and something that Eden can do a really great job of helping you do.
You know what we're going to do? Also, I'm just seeing that some people are trying to access the site. We had 80,000 people in 1 minute try to get onto the salary report, and we have a lot of capacity on our site, but we did not have that much ready for y'all today. So we will send, when the salary report is up and available, which should be within the next few minutes, we will send out an email with a link to both this recording and the full salary report to everyone who registered for this call. If you're listening on one of our social channels to the streamed version of this, please just comment on the social channel and we will also get that to you. And we will put it out on all of our social channels. So on our social channels, if you comment on any of our pages today with your email, we will get the full report to you so that you can read it all. We are excited to share it. And so we'll get that out to everybody. I know there are a lot of questions that have come up about that, but we will send it when it is ready for you to also share out with other people. So we always have a lot of interest in this, but this was about 4 times as much interest as we've ever had. So I guess we're doing something right, but thanks for your patience. I just want to give a quick shout out to Naman, who did a lot of the groundwork on collecting and synthesizing a lot of this information. Naman, your expertise in this area is really fantastic. And so if anybody has further questions, you can reach out to our team about it. There's a couple of other questions that came in through the chat, but I do want to give anyone an opportunity to unmute if you have a question. Does anyone have a question that they would like to ask live on the call?
Hello.
Yes. Hi. Go ahead, Mirkan.
Hello. May I speak now?
Yes,
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
Thank you for your information that you have given us to. I have one question. Could you give us information about the shifting from Big Four companies to MBB or relocation between countries? I'm working at KPMG and looking for new opportunities. Thank you.
Great. So yes, we can, and that's something that I would say maybe booking a time with Eden on would really help, because she can look at your whole background and also some of the specific opportunities that we're seeing in that space to help make a match up. Our community would be great for you too, because Eden can help you once, and the community can help you forever. So those are maybe 2 places I would point you for more information. But yes, those firms are hiring. Yes, they're hiring in your region. So we'd love to help with that.
Thank you, Jenny.
Pleasure. Thank you for joining. We appreciate you. Somebody also just asked for the university services. How does the live training offered to universities, such as the Intro to Consulting, et cetera, differ from coursework that's offered at the business schools? For one thing, we really focus on the recruiting and the job application aspects of the work. And so everything from a strategy sprint at a school all the way to just a 1-day seminar is focused on getting people practicing. And so whereas a lot of academics is theory where people teach and then you regurgitate, we are very much focused on what it's going to take in real life. And a lot of people find that translation helpful. In addition, we're just really highly rated. So, on average between 4.8 to 5 stars out of 5 in the sessions that we have. And the only complaint usually is that people want more time to digest the information, more time with us, and more of the same, not anything else. So if it's under 5 stars, that's usually what we hear is people want 2 days or 5 days or 10 days of the material rather than the really short and spunky version of that. So if y'all are students, we come in through student organizations that are often sponsored through student grant funding. If you are working at a library, libraries can bring on our entire source of our database. And if you're working in a career service office, we can help in all kinds of ways. Great. Amazing. Good. Any other questions, live questions, etc.? Naman, back to you. Any other final insights that you want to share before we sign off on the call today?
So all I'll say is this, there are 60 pages in the report, chock full of insights and data. And so I'm just going to let everybody marinate in what we shared today, and I will hold the rest for a future call and for you all to read the report and get those insights and that data in context. And so I think for today, we've shared the key takeaways, the key highlights, and how they apply to your recruiting journey. And so I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to get the report in your hands here this afternoon.
Good. Thank you, everyone. Thank you also to everyone who contributed to the report. This report, other than Naman doing a lot of the legwork to compile it together, is really the result of a generous community that receive a lot from it and pay it forward. So for those of you who haven't gotten your offer yet, when you do, we'd love to hear from you and help us just continue to make this the one and only original sourced consulting data report on the internet. Thank you again for joining. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, everyone.